Hey guys, tonight we're heading far, far back, like 700 years back, to the ancient kingdom of Axum, located in what's now northern Ethiopia. You're not a tourist though, you're not even a local. Nope. You've been chosen, or volunteered, depending how gullible you were, for temple service under one of the High Priestesses of the Axumite goddess tradition. It's dark outside, the stars still hang in thick, glittering silence, and your name is being called. You're yanked upright from a straw mat before the sun even thinks about showing up. Someone tosses a bucket of cold water on you. Welcome to devotion. You've got 10 seconds to be vertical. Around you, other initiates are rustling, groaning, whispering curses they'll soon have to confess. The priestesses don't smile. They just point, out the door, toward the rising slope where the temple looms. That's where you're going. Your knees are sore before you even start walking. The temple sits on a low hill, the steps carved out of basalt, each one slick with morning dew and centuries of barefoot prayers. And barefoot you are. That's the first rule. No sandals, nothing between you and the sacred earth. The dust is fine and chalky, clinging to your feet and then sticking to your wet calves. Welcome to your new skincare routine. You trudge silently behind a line of other initiates. The oldest priestess walks in front, a woman with hair white as bone and a staff carved from olive wood. She's got a slight limp, but her posture is more regal than any queen. People in the nearby village bow when she passes. You think it's respect. It might be fear, maybe both. The temple emerges like a shadow being pulled into form by the light. It's built of massive stone blocks, perfectly fitted without mortar. Historians still argue whether these stones were hauled by slave labour, divine command, or clever engineering lost to time. Either way, you're impressed, and vaguely dreading what's inside. You're ushered through a towering archway. Columns rise like petrified trees on either side of you. The air inside is cooler, damp with the smell of incense and old smoke. There's a sudden hush, the way the world feels right before a thunderstorm, except instead of thunder, there's chanting. Low, rhythmic, female voices. It makes your chest vibrate. You've never heard harmony like this. It doesn't sound learned, it sounds inherited. Then she appears, the High Priestess. No name is spoken aloud. She doesn't need one. She wears a layered robe dyed with crushed carmine insects and framed with gold thread. Her arms are bare but covered in intricate tattoos. Some resemble vines, others are geometric, symbols you can't recognize. She carries a long-necked jug of sacred water. The bowl in her left hand steams slightly. You try not to think about what's in it. You have been summoned, she says, and you realize she's not just addressing you, she's addressing something deeper inside you, or maybe something you've never met. To touch the divine, you must shed the human. That sounds poetic. Until you find out, it means you won't eat solids for 3 days. But that's not your biggest problem. Your name is scratched onto a small clay tablet. You're assigned to the purification detail, the hardest of all duties. Congratulations. That means before you can help others purify, you have to pass through a week-long trial to purify yourself, from the inside out. And by out, they do mean out, like exercising your ego with a fast, a flogging, and more than one substance that smells like burnt garlic and regret. The first ritual? Water summoning. You're led to the sacred spring behind the temple, a narrow cut in the stone with a pool that bubbles up from an underground source. Locals believe it was blessed by one of the first priestesses who dreamed of fire in the water. They say if the spring refuses you, if it goes still when you step in, it means your soul isn't ready. No pressure. You watch the initiate ahead of you step in. The water ripples. Good sign. Then it's your turn. You inhale, step forward, and it ripples. Whew. You're in, for now. But don't get smug. You're handed a reed basket full of temple linens. Your job for the next several hours is to wash them, by hand in the same spring. No soap, just ash paste and elbow grease. One wrong move, say, dropping a cloth in the mud, and you're back to day one. That's the thing about divine service. There are no shortcuts, but plenty of dead ends. As you scrub, your fingers prune and your arms ache. You think about your old bed, your old breakfast, your old life. None of that matters now. You're becoming something new. Or so they keep saying. But right now, you're just tired, hungry, cold. I'm pretty sure one of the cloths you washed earlier was already clean. Then the priestess supervising you suddenly slaps her staff against the rock. You flinch. She nods. That's her version of approval, apparently. Go, she says. "Prepare your body for the next hour. You will be seen." Seen? Seen by who? You don't ask. You've learned not to. You follow the others back inside, dripping, trailing mist. The next test awaits, and you're just getting started. You shuffle barefoot across the temple's stone corridor, your damp linen tunic clinging uncomfortably to your skin. Behind you, the sun has only just crested the horizon, but inside these walls, there's no sense of time. Just the echo of footsteps and the hush of things too old to explain. The silence feels alive, thick with expectation, as though the walls themselves are listening. Then comes the dust. The path shifts from cold stone to warm, powdery earth. The courtyard's floor is covered in a thick layer of crushed ochre and powdered pumice. It's sacred soil, brought from different holy sites across the Axumite kingdom. Some say it contains fragments from the original temple. Others whisper it includes ashes from long-dead priestesses. The truth? Still debated by historians. But one thing's certain, you can't just walk across it. You have to glide. "Lift your feet," hisses the initiate ahead of you. "Don't scuff. If you scuff, they'll make you redo it, with twice the dust." You nod, trying to balance grace with desperation. The dust clings to your ankles, a warm and strangely pleasant sensation, until it starts itching. No scratching allowed, though. The priestess watching you from the corner will see it. She sees everything. Her eyes don't blink. You wonder if she's human, or maybe something older, draped in flesh and judgment. You pass a tree in the centre of the courtyard, a twisted old sycamore fig wrapped in faded cloth strips and dangling charms made of clay and bone. It's known as the whisper tree. If you press your forehead against its bark and listen just right, the priestesses say it tells you your deepest fear. You don't have time for fear right now. You've got to focus. Your feet must touch only the designated pattern in the dust. A sacred design is brushed faintly across the surface. Spirals, waves, a pair of intersecting eyes. One wrong step and you'll defile the entire blessing ritual. An initiate behind you coughs. The priestess snaps her fingers. The girl is pulled from the line. Just like that. You don't see her again for the rest of the morning. "Keep moving," says the elder in front. "The goddess doesn't wait." At the far end of the courtyard stands the clothing hall, or more accurately, the Hall of Needles. You're not handed robes here. You make them, with your own blistered hands. Every initiate must sew their purification garment, a linen shift stitched with silver thread at the hem, and a prayer at the neckline. No pattern is given. You're supposed to listen for the design. You sit in a row, back straight, reed needles in hand. The flax cloth is thick and stiff, having been beaten over river stones for days. Your fingers aren't used to this. You draw blood on your first stitch. A novice next to you chuckles under her breath. Then the senior weaver appears. She holds no staff, no symbols of office, just a massive wooden loom slung over her back like a weapon. She crouches beside you, inspects your hemline, and mutters something about the stitch of impatience. Great. That sounds ominous. You try again, slower this time. Each loop through the fabric is a prayer, at least that's the idea. But all you can think about is how your legs have gone numb and your lower back is throbbing from sitting so long. Still, you persist. Eventually the pattern emerges. Not perfect, but passable. A braid of knots around the neckline, a single thread of red at the edge, symbolic of sacrifice, you're told, or fertility, or bloodlines. Again, scholars can't agree, but the priestesses aren't concerned with scholarly consensus. They see meaning in everything, even your sloppy stitching. At last, you're permitted to don the garment. A few awkward moments of stripping and slipping the linen over your head, under the gaze of women who've done this ritual more times than you've had birthdays. The cloth is rough against your skin, and the neckline tugs a little too tight. It's meant to restrict, to remind you that the body is temporary, and the soul, supposedly, needs pressure to grow. You're given a carved wooden pin to fasten the shoulder, shaped like a sun with a hollow center. You ask what it means. The response? The goddess sees through emptiness. Whatever that means, you nod solemnly. Everyone else is nodding too. Then, without warning, you're pushed forward into the next space, a narrow vestibule dimly lit by oil lamps suspended in cracked alabaster bowls. The air smells of burnt rosemary and goatskin. You're not alone. This is the trial of silence. For the next 6 hours, you're not allowed to speak, not allowed to cough, clear your throat, or even hum. The point is to let the divine speak through you. Or perhaps it's just a way to break your spirit before it breaks you. You're given a low stool, a bowl of water, and a small clay tablet with the symbol of the moon pressed into its surface. If you feel overwhelmed, you're allowed to trace the symbol. It's supposed to anchor your mind. But that doesn't stop the stomach growling, or the itch behind your ear that you can't scratch without alerting the watching priestess behind the veil. Time stretches. You try counting the oil drips. You try meditating on your breath. You try not to think about the fact that your legs are now asleep and your foot might be turning blue. Someone sneezes. You all flinch. The veil rustles. The offender is yanked backward by unseen hands. Another one gone. Another one not returning. You survive the silence, barely. When the bells finally ring, signaling the end, you feel relief, pride, and a little lightheadedness from holding your breath for the last 15 minutes. You're allowed to stand. Someone hands you a strip of dried date flesh and a sip of fermented barley milk. It tastes like vinegar and sun-warmed leather. You don't care. It's food. But the priestess isn't smiling. You reek of noise, she says. Then she hands you a bowl of pungent, sticky paste. Time for your first anointing. The paste in your bowl is the colour of rust and the texture of lumpy clay left in the sun. It steams faintly, and when you raise it to your face, you regret inhaling. The smell is layered. There's frankincense maybe, but underneath, a sharp sourness that stings your sinuses. Is that garlic? No. You catch a whiff of something animal, like barnyard and ashes and something else you can't place, something pungent and primal. The priestess who hands it to you does not explain. She just points to the small raised stone platform nearby where 3 other initiates stand in silence. Their bodies already coated in the same mixture. You follow, heart thudding. The wind brushes past your face, carrying the sounds of distant drums and a low, almost imperceptible chanting from somewhere deeper in the temple. You can't make out the words, but you feel them, like a pressure in your chest. You dip your fingers into the paste and feel the grit. The warmth. It clings to your skin like wet sand. You start with your arms, smearing the mixture up from your wrists to your shoulders, careful to leave no patch untouched. Next, your legs, your neck, your face. By the time you're finished, you don't look human. You look like a statue dragged out of a collapsed shrine. What exactly is this? You whisper to the girl next to you. She doesn't look at you, but she mutters under her breath. Goat dung, burnt ash, oil, and something fermented, I think. My cousin called it divine fly repellent. Wonderful. But it's more than that. According to temple law, this sacred anointing is meant to protect your body from malevolent spirits during purification. Some say it confuses the demons. Others claim it acts like armor for your soul. Historians argue whether the ritual served hygienic, spiritual, or purely symbolic purposes. But there's one thing everyone agrees on. It works best when you believe it does. You're instructed to stand still while the paste dries. It cakes onto your skin, forming cracks like ancient earth in a drought. You try not to think about how much of it is flaking into your eyes, or how many flies are now deeply interested in your ankles. Hours pass, someone faints. A priestess sprinkles water from a bronze ladle onto their head and moves on without pause. No one speaks. Finally, the next stage begins, the fire pit. You're led, stiff-limbed and cracking, to a wide circular room. The ceiling is open to the sky, and a slow column of smoke rises into the morning light. Around the edges, large stones have been arranged in concentric rings. Some are glowing red-hot, others are bare. You're motioned to lie down on one of the cool stones at the edge of the inner ring. You don't argue. Welcome to the holy scrubbing. Senior priestesses, none of whom have smiled once today, enter carrying large bowls of water and fistfuls of fibrous plants that look suspiciously like raw loofahs. They kneel beside each initiate and without warning begin. The scrub is not gentle. Your limbs are raw. The paste grinds into your skin as they scour every surface of you with ceremonial intensity. It feels like being exfoliated with gravel. You wince, you grit your teeth. You try to find your happy place. It does not exist here. Your back arches involuntarily when they scrape your spine. Someone yelps nearby. Another girl cries openly. No one stops. You glance up at the priestess scrubbing you. Her brow is furrowed in concentration. Her lips move in silent prayer. This is not punishment. This is devotion. And apparently you're the altar. once scrubbed to their satisfaction, and your utter humiliation, your help to your feet and led to a stone basin filled with lukewarm water. The first rinse is brief, meant to remove the worst of the paste. You're told the second rinse won't come for days. That paste still clinging in your ears and hair? Get used to it. As you stand, dripping and raw, a priestess walks around you in a slow circle, inspecting every inch. She stops, raises an eyebrow. Still too human, she says. You'll need to try again tomorrow. You want to scream, but you're learning. You bow instead, quietly, obediently, internally fuming. You're handed a new garment, similar to the last, but dyed a faint reddish brown from ochre and bark tannins. It sticks to your damp skin and leaves streaks across your collarbone. You wonder if it's permanent. You also wonder if you're still technically a person, or some half-divine, half-dung creature caught in a never-ending wellness cleanse from hell. They lead you back outside to a shaded alcove where incense burns on copper trays. You're given a wooden bowl filled with dry barley, chopped figs, and crushed herbs. It smells better than it tastes. The barley is undercooked, the figs are slightly fermented. You eat anyway. It's the first real food you've had in nearly a day. While you eat, you overhear two senior acolytes debating in hushed tones. "Did you see the blink?" one whispers. "The statue?" says the other. "Yes. When Kiefer stepped into the sanctum yesterday, her knees buckled." The other nods solemnly. "It only blinks for the unready." You pause mid-chew. "Wait, the statue blinks." You swallow hard. Too hard. The fig sticks to your throat. The goddess of this temple, they say, was carved from volcanic stone, eyes inlaid with obsidian and bronze. Her likeness stands in the deepest sanctum. And supposedly, when an initiate enters with doubt or defiance or impure thoughts, the eyes flicker. Just once. That's all it takes. There's a girl in your group who entered last month and still won't speak. You don't know what she saw, but you know you're supposed to face the statue tomorrow. You clutch your bowl tighter. You finish your meal in silence. The priestess returns holding a shallow clay dish filled with glowing coals. She smiles, for the first time today. "Tomorrow," she says, "the goddess will see you." You sleep outside that night, not on the temple's polished stone floors, but in the courtyard, beneath a sky so clear it feels unreal. A woven reed mat is your only cushion. A woven reed blanket, your only shield from the biting wind. Around you, the other initiates lie in scattered clusters like fallen leaves. No one dares to whisper. The temple enforces a ritual silence before divine encounter, but your mind is anything but quiet. You lie awake, staring at the stars above the Axumite hills. Their light is pale and distant, and yet in this place they feel close enough to scrape. You think of the statue, the blinking, the stories. They say she sees everything. You're woken before dawn by a sharp rap of wood on stone. A priestess stands over you holding a long staff topped with a curled symbol, half snake, half sunburst. Without speaking, she gestures. You follow, half asleep and wholly anxious. You're taken to a side chamber lit only by slivers of sunrise filtering through thin slits in the wall. You're told to kneel on a bed of coarse river reeds soaked in cold water. As the sun rises, the room slowly floods with gold. You remain still, waiting. And then, it's time. A bell chimes in the distance. The priestess raises one hand. You rise with the others, nerves fraying at the edges. You shuffle barefoot through a corridor lined with carved reliefs, images of harvests, celestial maps, winged figures offering fire to a central deity. You keep your eyes down. You don't know the full story, and frankly, now's not the time to ask. Then the sanctum door appears, black wood, studded with bronze nails in a swirling spiral design. The air grows cooler, thicker. You don't breathe, you don't even blink. Inside is the goddess. She towers above you, at least 3 times your height, carved from volcanic stone, polished to a soft sheen. Her face is expressionless, symmetrical, beautiful, terrifying. Obsidian eyes, bronze rims, a thin line for a mouth, arms outstretched, one palm raised, the other open toward the floor. She's not warm, she's not cruel, she simply is, and she's staring straight through you. You kneel, you feel your knees touch the cold stone. Your hands tremble as they settle in your lap. You lower your head, but not all the way. You want to see her, to know if the stories are true, to know if she'll blink, Around you, smoke drifts from the incense bowls at each corner. Frankincense, myrrh, and something floral. The priestess begins the invocation. Her voice is low, but it grows, like the sound of water rising in a gorge. Others join her, a choral murmur that hums in your bones. You wait. The smoke thickens, the silence deepens, and then you look. Her eyes do not move, but something in them does. A glint, a shimmer. You aren't sure. Maybe it's the firelight, maybe it's you, or maybe, just maybe, she blinked. Your stomach tightens, your mind floods with every impure thought you've ever had, every lie, every shortcut, every curse muttered under your breath in this very temple. It all blooms in your chest like panic, and then it's gone. Not the guilt, but the weight of it. She sees you, all of you, and she doesn't strike you down. She lets you stay. That, they say, is the true miracle. Your breath returns, slowly. You're allowed to rise. One by one, the initiates exit the sanctum backwards, never turning your back on the goddess. It's the rule, the penalty for breaking it. No one says. But one of the older girls walks with a limp. You suspect she found out the hard way. You're sent outside for fasting and movement, the dance ritual. Now it's less dancing and more ritualized trembling, really. It's called the breath of the earth. You raise your arms, lower them, sway, spin, sweat, and you don't stop. Not when your legs cramp, not when your vision blurs. Because this is supposed to shake out the remaining impurities in your spirit and, let's be honest, in your bowels too. It works. Maybe too well. Your hair is drenched. Your garment sticks to you. You look around. One girl has fainted. Another throws up neatly into a ceramic bowl prepared just for that purpose. Apparently, that's common. The temple has contingency bowls. That tells you everything you need to know. A priestess paces between you, rhythmically striking a gnarled staff against the earth. It's not to scare you exactly, more like a heartbeat, a reminder. Keep going, breathe through it, surrender to the divine purge. At some point your body stops hurting, not because the pain is gone, but because something deeper kicks in. You're not leading the movement anymore. It's like your body knows the rhythm before you do, before thought, before fear. You start to feel clear, and then it's over. The bell rings. Everyone drops, literally drops. Onto the dirt, onto stone, onto each other. You collapse in a heap of sweat, dizziness, and oddly, peace. A senior priestess steps over your tangled limbs and places a small clay token in your palm. It bears the same symbol from the door to the sanctum, the spiral. This means you are accepted. For now, you're allowed one drink of pomegranate water and a handful of salted beans. No talking, no smiling, no, oh my goddess, did you see that? Just sit, rest, and prepare for the night to come, because tonight is the watch, and the watch happens in the tomb garden, where the dead priestesses are buried. You thought the purification was the hard part, that scrubbing your skin raw and dancing on an empty stomach was the apex of this divine chaos. But no, because now, as the sky darkens and the cicadas begin their nightly drone, you're being led toward the tomb garden. That's not a metaphor, it's an actual cemetery. And not just for anyone, for the previous high priestesses of the temple. You follow in silence, the weight of your clay token warm in your palm. The trail is lit by flickering torches, their flames jerking in the wind. You try not to notice how the path narrows the further you go, or how the trees here lean at strange angles as if pulled toward the graves. The smell changes too. Less incense, more loam, damp stone, something musky and old, older than the temple, older than language. The tomb garden is surrounded by a low wall of stacked basalt stones, each marked with faint spirals and sun glyphs. No names, just symbols. You count at least 30 flat burial mounds, each one capped with a polished slab of dark volcanic rock. Some are larger than others, some have small offerings, dried flowers, pots of honey, iron amulets. The oldest stones are cracked but unbroken. Like the dead beneath them still have things to say. You're handed a small oil lamp and a rough wool shawl. Choose a spot, the priestess says softly. Sit and listen. To what? You whisper before you can stop yourself. She gives you a look like you've just asked where the gods sleep. They'll let you know. You pick a place near a squat mound that's slightly off-center. The ground here is uneven, covered in dried grass and scatterings of bird bones. The tombstone is warm from the day's heat. You wrap the shawl tighter, light your lamp, and sit cross-legged. You try not to look nervous. Everyone else is pretending this is fine. Here's the rule. You must remain here all night, no speaking, no sleeping. You must absorb the ancestral breath. In plain terms, you're supposed to commune with the spirits of the past priestesses, ask them questions, receive wisdom, hopefully not hallucinate anything with claws, and you're alone. You keep the lamp lit and your eyes wide, but soon the darkness starts to move. The wind rustles the tall grass, the trees creak like old doors, and then there's the sound, a soft scraping. You freeze. It's behind you, near the older graves. You don't dare turn around. That would break protocol. You're meant to stay facing forward, to receive what comes, not chase it. The scraping stops, then begins again, closer. You remember the joke one of the acolytes told earlier? If you see something in the tomb garden, just smile. It probably saw you first. You hadn't laughed then. You're definitely not laughing now. Then something slithers over your foot. You inhale sharply and glance down. Snake. A small one, maybe a foot long, patterned with pale diamonds. It moves lazily, like it owns the place, which technically it does. The temple believes snakes carry the breath of the ancestors, that they're guardians, messengers. If a snake approaches you in the garden, it's supposed to be a sign that you're being watched, judged, possibly chosen. The snake pauses, looks up, at least you think it does, and then moves on, slipping under a root and disappearing. You sit motionless, heart pounding. You don't know whether to be honoured or horrified, maybe both. Midnight approaches. The stars above you shift. You feel the cold in your joints now, seeping into your bones. You're not sure if it's the chill or the pressure. Then you hear something new, a whisper. It's not in your ears, it's inside your head. You can't make out the words. It's like an old woman muttering underwater. A foreign language, maybe, or the language of memory. You're not sure whose memory, yours or the temple's. You close your eyes and let it in. Suddenly you see something. A face, not clearly, wrinkled, stern, eyes that burn like embers. She doesn't speak, but she doesn't have to. You feel it in your ribs. She's not disappointed, she's not impressed. She's curious. That's worse. You jerk awake. Wait, were you dreaming? You're still sitting. The lamp still burns, but your hands are clenched into fists. There's a thin line of blood on your palm. Your fingernails broke the skin. You didn't feel it. Around you, others stir. A few are crying softly. One girl is rocking back and forth, murmuring. The priestesses say nothing, they just wait. Observing, judging. At last, the sky softens. The eastern rim glows blue. Morning is coming. You rise stiffly, your knees clicking like old hinges. The priestess walks by, collecting the lamps. Yours flickers out as she takes it. Did they speak to you? She asks quietly. You nod. Because how could you explain what really happened? You're not even sure it did happen. Then you've passed, she says. For now. You walk back toward the temple slowly, dragging your shawl, chilled to the bone, stomach hollow, mind buzzing. You've faced the dead. Now you'll face yourself. Because tonight you'll break your silence again, not to speak, but to confess your thoughts to something even more fragile than a goddess, a clay vessel, and then you'll destroy it. You're barely upright when they bring you to the confession chamber. The dawn light hasn't even cleared the courtyard, but already your mind feels 2 steps behind your body. Your bones ache from sitting in the tomb garden all night. Your eyelids flutter with the weight of not sleeping, and yet, the ritual doesn't wait for comfort. That's not the point. In fact, by now, you're starting to get the feeling that comfort might be the enemy. Inside the chamber, the walls are smooth, curved inward like the belly of a clay pot. No windows, just 3 oil lamps suspended from goat leather cords. Their flickering casts shadows that bend like dancers across the walls. In the centre sits a low stone pedestal, and on top of that, your next opponent, a plain, wide-bellied clay vessel with a narrow opening. No decoration, no markings, just red earthenware waiting to hold your shame. The priestess standing in the corner nods toward it. You know what to do. You sort of don't. But your body moves anyway. You sit cross-legged in front of it, your knees brushing its base. It's warm, having been left near the morning coals. The priestess takes a step back, retreats behind a veil of reeds that rustle faintly with her movement. You're now alone with the pot. The idea is simple. You whisper your thoughts into the vessel, your unclean ones, the ones you would never say aloud. Thoughts from your past, doubts from yesterday, that thing you muttered about the scratching linen and the priestess's weird sandals. Anything and everything. The pot doesn't judge, they say. It holds, it absorbs, and when it's full, it breaks. It sounds silly. Until you begin. At first your voice is barely a breath. I thought about running away. You glance at the veil. No reaction. I imagined shoving another initiate during the courtyard ritual. Still nothing. I don't know if I believe in the blinking. There. That one stings. You whisper more. All the little cracks in your discipline, the exhaustion, the envy, the small rebellions of the mind that don't show on the face. You whisper them until your throat dries, until your skin burns with the honesty of it all. Then the priestess returns. She says nothing, but hands you a mallet carved from dark wood, smoothed by generations of other trembling hands. You stand, you raise it. The sound the vessel makes when it breaks isn't loud, it's clean, final. It shatters into 3 uneven pieces, the base rolling to a stop near your ankle. You flinch, not from the sound, but from the feeling, like something left you, something you didn't know you were carrying. You look down. Inside the shards, nothing. Of course, just the memory of sound and breath and heat. The priestess retrieves the pieces with care, placing them in a woven basket already filled with dozens of others, all broken, all carrying invisible weight. You wonder what they do with them. Bury them, grind them into dust, feed them to the snakes in the tomb garden. You may speak now, she says softly. You blink. What? Not during the ritual, she clarifies. From now on, the silence has lifted. You exhale. It's been days. You'd almost forgotten the shape of your voice, but just as quickly, the permission vanishes. Come, it's time for the smoke. The next ritual chamber is darker. The air is thicker, sweet, heavy. You can already feel it in your throat. Hanging above a large sunken fire pit is a copper bowl the size of a chariot wheel. Inside it, smoking bundles of cedar, juniper, crushed petals, dried roots. Burning. Always burning. The priestesses refer to it as the breath of the ancestors. It's not meant to intoxicate, but to penetrate. The smoke creeps into your hair, your pores, your lungs. One deep breath and you feel your chest tighten. Not painfully, just profoundly. You're told to kneel. The floor is covered in dry reeds and ash. You inhale again. The smoke stings, yes, but it also carries something with it. A strange calm, a soft heat at the base of your spine. You begin to feel floaty, like your body is a garment you can remove at any moment. The priestess begins a chant, her voice rising and falling like breath itself. You don't understand the words, but the tone unspools something in you. Emotions you can't name, shapes in your memory rising like bubbles in boiling water. You cough, it's involuntary, sharp. The chanting stops. Everyone turns. The priestess's eyes meet yours. You freeze, but she only nods, just once. You're resisting, she says. Let the smoke speak through you. What does that even mean? You inhale again, this time deeper. You let the smoke invade you, let it roll through your chest and sit heavy in your belly. This is more than a lungful of sacred incense. This is a confrontation, a communion, a choice. Around you, the other initiates sway slightly. Some murmur. One girl begins to hum, off-key but rhythmic. You don't know whether it's encouraged or not, but no one stops her. You begin to feel it now, not dizziness, not quite, more like unmooring. The walls seem farther away than before. The air feels thick, slow-moving like syrup, and inside you something is unraveling, not breaking, just loosening, like a knot you didn't know was clenched. Your name echoes faintly through the chamber. You turn, but no one said anything. It was your name, but not out loud. You exhale, and it leaves with you. By the time the smoke ritual ends, your skin smells like cedar and sweat. Your thoughts are soft around the edges. You're not sleepy. You're clean. Not like soap clean, soul clean. For a moment anyway. The priestess hands you a bowl of cool water. You drink, slowly. You don't ask what's next. You've learned better by now. But what comes next is stranger, because you're about to meet the midwives of fire, and they have questions. They don't knock. They don't announce their arrival. They just appear, 3 of them, draped in layered cloth that smells of smoke and citrus ash, their faces veiled not for modesty but to separate them from the world of the unclean. These are the temple's fire midwives. Not midwives in the childbirth sense, although rumour has it one of them delivered twins in the middle of an eclipse without flinching. No, these women birth flame, not flesh. Keepers of the eternal fire, custodians of what the temple calls the breath of divinity. They lead you wordlessly down a ramp into a chamber lit only by firelight. There are no windows, no incense, just heat, real, raw heat. The kind that licks your skin and settles behind your ears like a whisper you can't ignore. The fire sits in a shallow stone basin in the centre of the chamber. It's not large, but it's alive. The flames don't dance, they pulse, rising and falling with a rhythm that doesn't match the wind or your breath. One of the midwives steps forward and stirs the coals with a twisted bronze rod. Sparks jump like startled insects. Another midwife drizzles a thick, clear oil from a goatskin bottle onto the flame. A sudden flare, your eyebrows recoil. This flame has been burning for generations. According to temple tradition, it was first lit during the founding of the temple, possibly even earlier, and has never once gone out. Not during famine, not during siege, not even when lightning struck the outer wall and killed a priestess on the spot. The fire survived. They say it's protected by the breath of the goddess herself. Historians remain skeptical, of course, arguing about airflow systems and hidden oil compartments, but none of those scholars have ever stood here, sweating in reverent terror as the fire watches them back. You're handed a bundle of dry branches, acacia mostly, with dried citrus peel and a few sprigs of blue-flowered herbs you've never seen before. "Feed it," says one of the midwives, voice hoarse from years of smoke and silence. With intention. You step forward. Your knees want to buckle. You pause before the basin and hold the bundle over the flames. Not too close. Not yet. You're meant to whisper a truth. Not aloud, but in your mind. Something real. Something painful. Something the fire will recognize. You close your eyes. The truth you offer is small and awful and entirely yours. Then you drop the bundle in. The fire flares. It licks the offering, sizzles on the citrus, crackles on the bark. The smell is pungent, cleansing, electric. The flames glow blue for half a second. You don't know if that's normal. No one reacts. You step back. Approved. The midwives nod. Now comes the test. You're tasked with keeping the fire alive through the night. Not alone, but close. You and 3 others form the new fire circle, the youngest initiates assigned to the flame. You sit cross-legged around it, sweat pouring from your scalp, every muscle slack and burning. You're given a fan made of palm and bone to stoke it gently. Too soft and the flame dims, too hard and the ashes scatter, a sign of imbalance, a spiritual offense. Time slows in this chamber. There are no stars to measure the hours by, only flame, only breath. You begin to slip into a trance, one eye on the coals, one foot in your own subconscious. You hear a voice, not the midwives, not the other initiates. It's yours, but older. And it says only one word, "Stay." You jolt upright. The flame wavers. One of the midwives glances over. Her eyes are sharp despite the veil. "Don't drift," she says. "The fire tests attention." And now you see the real trial. The fire is not just a thing to tend. It is a mirror. It burns brighter or dimmer with your concentration. It reveals whether your thoughts are scattered or sharp. And right now, yours are drifting like smoke, so you focus. On the crackle, the heat, the way the flames flicker in spiral patterns like the symbol carved into the sanctum doors, into the clay token in your palm, into the soft lining of your memory. The flame responds, steady, clear, alive. Hours pass. Your legs fall asleep. Your fingers tremble with heat fatigue. You're given a small sip of honey water halfway through. It tastes like relief and ash. Then something strange happens. The fire speaks, not in words, in images, a face, a memory. Your mother's hands, calloused but gentle. Your father's voice, rising in anger but trembling with fear. A river, a lost friend. The scent of wet earth after rain. None of this is real in the physical sense, but in this chamber, it is. The fire shows you what you've buried. It pulls it out of you, like splinters of thought baked into your bones. You begin to cry, but not from sadness, not entirely, from truth. The kind that leaves you clean and shaken. The midwives begin their final chant, low and fierce. The fire responds, rising, rising, until it throws shadows 10 feet high. Then, with a breath, they pour a small ring of ash around the basin. The ritual is complete. You are released into the courtyard, staggering like you've returned from a war you barely remember fighting. You sleep. You dream of fire and eyes and hands reaching through smoke. When you wake, it's evening again. They hand you a basin of salt water. You're told, it's time to soak. They don't say what happens if your soul doesn't rise to the surface, but apparently, some don't. The saltwater basin sits under the open sky, nestled between two crescent-shaped stone walls that capture the moonlight like silver in a bowl. The air is cooler now, still carrying the scent of cedar smoke from the fire chamber, but tinged with something sharper. Salt, mineral, and something faintly metallic like old blood and new stone. You're led in silence by a junior acolyte whose only instruction is, soak until it stings. You're too tired to ask questions anymore. The basin isn't large, it's round, shallow, and filled with water so dense with salt that your skin starts puckering just standing beside it. You hesitate, then you step in. The sting is immediate. It's not just the raw skin from the exfoliation, it's every little scratch, every bug bite, every invisible wound you didn't even know you had. The water finds them all and announces them with fire. You sink slowly, your linen robe clinging to you before finally giving up and floating in translucent ribbons. Your arms float, your hair spreads out around your head like dark smoke on the surface. You lean back until your ears slip beneath the water, and then it happens. The world goes quiet, not just muted, gone. No chants, no drums, no insects, no thoughts, just the salt, the sky, and the dark water pressing into your ears like ancient hands. They say the salt draws out the ego, that the water has memory, that it pulls from you what you can't name and replaces it with what the goddess remembers. Scholars tend to scoff at that last one. Water with memory is a bit much, even for mystics. But as your heartbeat slows and your breath deepens, you're inclined to disagree. Because something is leaving you. You can feel it, like fog rolling out from the corners of your mind. You don't even try to chase it. You let it go. For a few moments you are nothing. And it's wonderful. But the moment doesn't last. A piercing scream rips through the quiet. It isn't yours. You jolt upright, water splashing around you in a violent halo. Another initiate, 2 basins down, is thrashing, screaming. Her voice is raw, her hands clawing at the edge of the stone. Priestesses rush in, lifting her out, draping cloths over her shivering frame. They say nothing. Neither does she. She's removed from the purification path. You won't see her again. A cold thought sneaks in. Some souls aren't meant to be seen. You sink back down, slower this time. You don't know what she saw. But the water now feels heavier, a little more alive, a little more aware. You close your eyes, and then you feel it, the thing no one warned you about. It's not pain, it's not fear, it's memory, not from your life, from somewhere older. You see a mountain, a woman with silver in her hair, standing in a river. Her mouth is open in song. You recognize her, but she's not anyone you know. She turns, she looks at you, and then the water pulls you, not physically, psychologically, emotionally. It brings you back to your own beginning, a childhood wound, the day you learned to lie, the moment you learned to make yourself smaller so others wouldn't feel threatened. You see it, you feel it, and then the salt stings it clean. When you finally rise from the basin, you're lightheaded, half-born. Your lips taste like blood and ocean. Your skin is tight. Your breath feels rounder, slower. You wrap yourself in a linen cloth and sit on a flat stone under the open sky. The moon is nearly full, and the stars blink in a silent kind of applause. You've survived. But the night is not done with you. From somewhere in the temple complex the drum begins, 1 beat, then 2, then faster. A low pulsing rhythm that skips like a heartbeat, caught in ecstasy and terror. The The acolyte who led you to the bath reappears. She doesn't speak. She simply places her fingers to her own chest, then yours. The goddess listens now, she whispers. Be still when it strikes. You don't have time to ask what that means, because you're already being led to the inner courtyard, where the head priestess waits, draped in black linen that gleams like obsidian under the moonlight. In one hand, she holds a drum. It's larger than her torso, its skin stretched taut with what might be goat hide, dyed deep red. Some say it's not goat. She lifts it and begins to play, not with sticks, with her fingers. Long, thin fingers that tap and slap and trace the drumhead in patterns you don't understand. But your body does. Your chest responds. Your breath catches. The rhythm is in you. Every beat is a question, and every vibration a judgment. No one speaks. No one moves. The courtyard is filled with initiates sitting in stiff rows. Behind them, priestesses line the wall, silent, watching. The drumming intensifies. You feel it in your gut, your bones, your teeth. It builds, louder, sharper, faster, and then suddenly stops. Dead silence. She looks at you, not the group, you. Her eyes don't blink, then she speaks. Do you know who you are beneath the skin? The question is absurd, and yet, your body answers. It shivers. She nods. You'll find out, before the week is done. And then the drumming begins again. The rhythm stays with you long after the drumming stops. It echoes behind your ribs, a phantom heartbeat that doesn't belong to your body alone. You try to shake it off, but the sound has already rooted itself in your bones. You walk away from the courtyard as if sleepwalking. Shoulders loose, jaw slack, limbs no longer fully convinced of gravity. Around you, the other initiates drift in the same trance, their faces blank, their eyes wide. The head priestess watches, expression unreadable, somewhere between approval and pity. You're led by torchlight back into the temple's inner passageways, not to your mat, not to the open-air courtyards or the salt basin. No, this time you descend. The air shifts as you move lower. It grows heavier, more humid. The scent of damp earth and age replaces incense. The stone beneath your feet is moist, slick in patches. The flickering torchlight throws strange shadows on the carved walls, spirals, animals, distorted faces in mid-chant. Your guide doesn't speak, and you know better than to ask. You've heard whispers about the lower chambers. Some call it the hollow of the goddess. Others call it the womb that remembers. It's where you go when words no longer reach what's broken in you. A place of symbolic death. The kind where you either emerge reborn, or not at all. You reach a chamber so dark the flames seem to recoil from it. It's circular, domed, with no door, just an arched threshold that feels less like architecture and more like a mouth. Inside, the temperature drops. The only source of light is a single flame in a sunken bowl surrounded by concentric rings etched into the floor. You're instructed to lie at the center. No pillow, no blanket, just stone. You obey. As soon as you lie down, you realize this isn't about rest. This is about exposure. Every noise is amplified in here. Your breath, your heartbeat, the smallest twitch of your fingers. You're told that the acoustics were designed for this very purpose, that even a whispered lie would echo like a scream in this chamber, that the walls were built to reflect truth, not sound. And that's when the priestess begins to speak. Not to you, not really, but near you, around you. Her voice is low and ancient, the cadence strange. She chants stories of women who entered the chamber and came out with silver hair, of girls who met their ancestors face to face and refused to leave, of a priestess who once screamed so long and loud that the stone cracked. That crack, you're told, is somewhere beneath your back right now. She tells a myth, a goddess who swallowed the moon, only to spit it out again because the light was too loud. And when the moon returned to the sky, it carried the memory of darkness forever after. You don't understand it, but you feel it. Your eyelids grow heavy. You blink once, twice, and then something shifts. You're not asleep, but you're no longer here. You're somewhere in between. You're floating in blackness, not frightening, but complete. Warm, like the inside of a sealed jar or the moment before a candle is lit. There is no sound, no edge, just the soft sensation of being watched by something old and patient. Then, the vision comes. You're a child again, barefoot in a garden you don't recognize but somehow know. The soil is red, the trees hum. A woman approaches. You know her, but can't name her. Her eyes are yours. Her hands are weathered, beautiful. She places something in your palm, a spiral. Then she speaks, not aloud, but through your chest. You forgot. That's why you hurt. The spiral in your hand glows, and you wake up. You're back on the stone. Sweat drenches your robe. Your hands shake, but the spiral is still with you. Not physical, but burned into your memory like a brand made of light. The priestess kneels beside you. She dips a cloth in the flame's oil and presses it gently to your forehead. The heat stings. A spiral now glistens on your skin, drawn in oil and ash. You're marked, she says. They saw you. You want to ask who they are, but you already know. Not gods, not spirits. The parts of you that have been waiting, watching, hoping you'd finally come home. She helps you up. Your legs are jelly, your arms weak, you've barely eaten. Your mind feels like wet clay, but you walk. You're led to a pool of still water, black and mirror-like, hidden behind a veil of vines. The priestess holds a shard of obsidian up to your face and asks softly, "Who are you now?" You don't answer, because there's no language yet for what you are. You look in the water, and the water looks back. The reflection in the water isn't quite yours, or maybe it's too much yours, too real to recognize. The woman in the dark mirror has your eyes, yes, but they shine differently now. Not with confidence, not even with clarity, but with something quieter, deeper, containment. She doesn't blink, doesn't smile. She simply watches, as if daring you to look away. You don't. The priestess kneels beside you, still holding the obsidian shard. She lowers it, dips it into the water. The reflection wavers and breaks apart into ripples. Just like that, she's gone. The ritual is over, but the spiral on your forehead still tingles, as if it's been carved under the skin. You rise slowly. Your legs ache less now. Not because the pain is gone, but because it belongs to you again. It's not something happening to you, it's yours. That's the difference. That's the shift. You're led wordlessly through another narrow hall lit with blue-tinted lamps made from hollowed gourds and thin slices of mica. The light is soft, dreamlike. It casts no real shadows, only suggestions. You walk past murals painted centuries ago, scenes of priestesses tending fires, climbing staircases made of clouds, weeping into bowls of ash. One shows a figure walking into the mouth of a giant lion, hands raised not in fear, but in welcome. That one stays with you. Eventually you arrive at the outer court once more, and that's where the final test is revealed. You're handed a pack of supplies, a water gourd, a small bread cake, a roll of linen and a knife carved from antelope horn. You're told nothing except this. You're to walk to the edge of the sacred forest. Alone, enter before moonrise, return before dawn, or don't return at all. A test of trust, they say, a test of will, a test of place. They don't tell you what's inside the forest. No maps, no signs, just a direction. East. You set out at dusk, the sky smeared with pink and bruised grey, your breath fogging just slightly as the evening air cools. The path is narrow, woven through with wild grass and dry thistles. Crickets begin their song. In the distance, a horn sounds. One long, hollow note. It sounds like warning, it sounds like farewell. You cross the boundary just as the sun kisses the hills, and the forest closes around you. The trees here are tall and oddly shaped, with knotted roots that rise like ribs and canopies that block the stars. The light disappears quickly. Even the insects grow quiet. It's not pitch black, but something softer, silver dark. You hear your own breathing more than anything else, and your heartbeat, that ever-present syncopated drum. You keep walking. You're not told what you're looking for. That's part of the point. The forest isn't meant to test your ability to survive. It's meant to show you whether you deserve to return. There are whispers among the initiates about what happens here. Some say a panther follows you, unseen. Others claim the goddess herself walks these woods in the body of a child with eyes that reflect fire. One girl said she saw her own double in the trees, mimicking her every move until sunrise. When she blinked, it disappeared, and some never return at all. They say it's exile, or enlightenment, or death. You find a clearing with a stone at the center, worn smooth by time or ritual or both. You sit. You wait. You don't know what else to do. The moon rises. You begin to hum. Not on purpose. It just slips out. A melody you don't recognize, but your body seems to know. Then you hear something moving, not far, maybe 10 paces behind you. You freeze. A branch snaps. You turn. Slowly. There is no one there. But when you turn back, something has changed. Your offering pack is gone. In its place, a bundle of herbs, a small leather pouch, and a mirror. Not a polished one. A broken shard of black glass wrapped in flax. You pick it up carefully. Inside, your reflection flickers. But this time, it smiles. You breathe. You laugh. Quiet. Shocked. Like you've forgotten how. Something in the trees rustles, and then everything goes still. The sky shifts. The stars begin to return, and with them, a sense of time. Dawn is coming. You feel it in your bones. You rise. You walk back without checking behind you. Not because you aren't scared, but because you aren't alone. You reach the temple gates just as the first birds sing. The priestess is waiting. She doesn't ask you what happened. She just opens the door. You returned, she says. Now you can begin. Begin? You thought this was the end. But of course not. This is the nativity. The death has passed. Now comes the rebirth. The gates close behind you with a sound that's less like a door shutting and more like a seal being pressed into wax. You've crossed the threshold, not just into the temple, but into something more permanent. You no longer feel like a guest here. The stone under your feet feels familiar. The air in your lungs has weight and memory. And the women who once looked at you with curiosity or suspicion now meet your eyes without blinking. You're no longer observed. You are part of the order. The first step of your return is not celebration, it's kneeling. The courtyard has been swept, relayered with sacred ochre dust since your absence. You recognize the spiral pattern again, though it's slightly different now. An extra curve, a subtle inward turn. It's meant to reflect your passage. The forest changes the symbol each time. You're led by a priestess in a hooded cloak, one you've never seen before. She walks slowly, deliberately, and says nothing. At the center of the courtyard is a raised platform surrounded by 7 bowls of smoking herbs. Myrrh, juniper, datura, things you can name, others you cannot. Their scents layer over each other, twisting in the wind like snakes courting in silence. She gestures for you to kneel in the middle. This is the reclaiming. You're being reintroduced to the temple, but not as an initiate, as something else. Something in between servant and seer. A vessel, they say. 1 foot in the human world, 1 in the world of shadow and sky. A second priestess steps forward and begins to wash your feet with a cloth soaked in milk and crushed fig. It's not warm, but it's oddly tender. You almost cry, and you don't know why. Then comes the oil. Poured from a carved horn, it's thick and dark, almost black. It smells of fire and honey and death. She smears it across your brow, over the spiral still marked on your forehead, and then down the center of your chest. You're no longer being purified, you're being claimed. This oil is the signature, the stamp, and the entire temple is watching. Dozens of eyes peer out from shadowed archways. Elder priestesses, acolytes, even children training to be future attendants. They watch not with judgment, but recognition. You've walked the fire, faced the dark, returned from the forest. You're not one of them, but you're not one of them either. You're the one they call between. Now, your voice is requested. The first time in over a week that someone actually wants to hear it. The hooded priestess steps forward. Her face is lined, but her eyes burn like coals in the night. She places a clay bowl in front of you, filled with water from the spring tinted with crushed saffron. Speak, she says. Tell the water who you are now. It's not for them. It's for you. You open your mouth, and the words don't come at first. Your throat is dry, cracked from silence, from smoke, from swallowed grief. You touch your hand to your chest, feel your own pulse, and finally your voice breaks free. I don't know my name, you whisper. She nods. I don't know what I saw, she nods again. But I came back. Her smile is slow, almost imperceptible. That is enough. She picks up the bowl and pours its contents onto the stone. The saffron water traces a pattern through the dust, coiling and twisting, spiraling outward. Then it disappears, evaporated, gone, like the version of you that once hesitated at the temple gates. You're now wrapped in a new robe. This one is softer than the first, dyed deep indigo. It clings less. You feel lighter. There is a band of embroidered silver at the wrist, another spiral at the hem. You're not told where to go next. You're simply left. Left in the courtyard as the others begin to scatter. A few nod at you, one smiles, another presses a small dried flower into your palm. A temple gesture that can mean welcome, warning, or curiosity. Probably all three. You walk the halls now differently, slower, more grounded. You're not following anymore. You're moving through. And then you're summoned again, to the quiet room, the one few initiates enter, the one even fewer return from. You expected more drama, a trumpet, a bell, a mysterious bird call. But no, it's a whisper. A young girl, no more than 10, tugs your robe and says, "She wants you." You nod. You follow. The room is small, bare, lit by a single wick in a bowl of oil. The head priestess is there, sitting on the floor. She looks older now than before. Her robes are loose. Her hair is uncovered. She holds no staff, no symbol of rank, just her breath, and a small, silent smile. "You sat with death," she says. "You walked without knowing. You returned." You say nothing. There's nothing to say. "Now you must choose." Your heart stutters. Choose? You may leave, return to your village, marry, bear children, grow herbs, whisper stories to grandchildren, or, she leans forward, stay and belong to no one but the flame. Your breath catches. You're not expected to answer now. The choice is never immediate. The next few days will be filled with solitude, visions, tests of will that no one speaks of. And at the end of them, you'll speak one word: leave or stay. Either way, you won't be the same, and neither will your world. They don't tell you when the final days begin. There's no announcement, no formal decree, just a soft unraveling of structure. Meals delivered late, tasks left unfinished, priestesses drifting past you like shadows that no longer need to teach or test. You're not ignored, but you are left alone, completely, eerily alone. It's as if the temple has stepped back and drawn a chalk circle around you, a space of stillness where no one else can enter. You've become your own ritual. The silence returns, but now it's self-imposed. You sit by the whisper tree, pressing your forehead gently against the bark. The old sycamore fig hums with something ancient, something electric. You ask it nothing, but it murmurs anyway. The wind through its branches sounds like breath and rusted bells. You remember the first time you passed this tree, how frightened you were to step wrong, to fail, to be seen. Now, you understand that failure was never the threat. Unawareness was. Later that day, you're summoned to the eastern wing, where the old temple scrolls are kept. You expected dust and darkness, maybe even guards. But it's open, bright. A long corridor of clay tablets and goat parchment scrolls wrapped in linen and marked with charcoal symbols. You are told to choose one, just one. The scroll you pick is light, fragile, ink barely clinging to the skin. It unrolls with a sigh. The script is faded, angular. Axumite ge'ez, the sacred tongue. You don't understand every word, but the symbols seem to breathe. They show a woman walking through flames, not burning. A serpent curled around her wrist, a temple collapsing behind her, and written below it, in large curling script, "The wound reveals the way." You re-roll the scroll, and suddenly you're crying. Not from pain, but from recognition. You've seen the collapse, you've felt the fire, and now the snake is near. The following night it finds you, not in the forest, not in the tomb garden, in your own sleeping space. You wake just before midnight, heart suddenly alive and fluttering, at the foot of your mat. A thin, long shape, barely visible except for the glint of scale under moonlight. You freeze. The serpent raises its head. You don't scream, you don't move. The snake slithers closer, around your left hand, loops once, gently, not tight, not aggressive. Then it rests its chin on your palm. You exhale. It stays for one breath, 2, 3, then slides away, leaving your hand damp and buzzing with something that feels older than fear, like memory made flesh. In the morning, the priestess sees you and says only it chose you. That afternoon, you're handed a flat clay tile still warm from the kiln, your task, Inscribe your passage, not with words, with symbols, spirals, eyes, hands, trees, whatever comes. You sit with a sharp bone stylus and carve carefully, slowly, a flame, a spiral, a hollow moon, a girl with no face, your story told without language. When you're finished, the tile is dried under the sun and placed into the temple wall, near the quarters of the elder priestesses, not for display, not for others, for memory, for the walls to remember you. You feel weightless, and yet deeply rooted, like something has sealed, closed, like an old wound that no longer needs tending. That night, your dreams return, but they're different now. You see the goddess, but she's not stone anymore. She's fire and fabric and breath. She doesn't speak, but she lifts her hand, and you follow. In the dream, she places a mask in your hands, one side painted gold, the other blackened and cracked. You don't ask what it means. You already know. In the morning, you wake with the scent of smoke in your hair. No fire burned nearby. The final rite comes silently. You're woken not by a bell, but by a child. The same girl who brought you to the quiet room. She places a garment beside you, a new robe, woven of deep brown flax embroidered with thread dyed from crushed berries and ash. The spiral is there again, but now it opens outward. You dress. Slowly. Each fold feels like memory, like belonging. You are led to the outer path, one more time, but this time you don't leave the temple. You circle it, 3 times, walking slowly, silently, tracing the walls with your hand. When you complete the final circle, the priestesses are waiting. You kneel before them. They place a new mark on your wrist, drawn in oil, then dusted with ground obsidian. It glitters, then fades. No feast follows, no applause, just this. You may stay, and then they leave, and you're alone again, but not lonely. You're part of the breath, the flame, the rhythm. You don't ask what your role is now, because you already feel it, in your bones, in your breath, in your silence. You're no longer in purification. You are the one who purifies. The change doesn't feel like lightning. It's slower, stranger, more like fog pulling back to reveal the shape of the land you've always walked, but never seen. You begin your days not with instruction, but intention. No more directives, no whispered tasks from passing priestesses, just a quiet glance, a nod, a gesture. Somehow you know what to do. You sweep the courtyard not because you're told to, but because the dust itself asks. You light the incense not on command, but because the air feels too heavy. You catch yourself humming the old chants now, not from memory, but from within. You don't remember learning them. Maybe you didn't. Maybe the temple taught your bones while you slept. And yet, you're not a priestess. Not yet. You're still between. Still in the spiral's curve. Your first true duty arrives without fanfare. A novice arrives at the temple gate, mud-streaked, eyes wide, clutching a broken sandal and a satchel that jingles like it holds teeth. She doesn't speak. Just looks around like she's been dreaming for days and isn't sure she's woken up. The senior priestess gestures to you. You blink. You? Yes, she says. Guide her. You don't speak to the girl right away. You remember what it's like, how words feel like vinegar at first, how silence can hold you better than comfort. So you walk beside her, show her where the fig tree leans, where the spring runs quietest, where the dust settles thickest. At night, you show her where to sleep, just far enough from the fire to feel alone, but close enough to not be lost. You don't tell her what's coming, you don't need to. The temple will speak to her in its own voice, just as it did with you. That same evening, you're invited to observe your first induction ceremony. You're not in it, not the focus. But you stand beside the inner circle now, just beyond the incense line. You recognize the rhythm of it, the same blood in a different heartbeat. A young woman is being painted in oil and ash. She trembles, not from cold, but from recognition. You watch her eyes. They look like yours did. Days, no, lifetimes ago. Then the High Priestess chants something new, a name, yours. The circle parts slightly. You're asked to step forward. You witnessed, she says. You nod. You remember. You nod again. You now bear the spiral. She touches your forehead gently. There is no mark this time, no ash, no blood, just skin on skin, but you feel it anyway. A spiral etched beneath the surface, not seen, but never gone. That night, sleep does not come easily. Your dreams return in fragments, fireflies crawling from your mouth, a staircase made of wet stone, the goddess, again, but this time she walks away from you, laughing. When you wake, there is a folded linen on your mat, a new robe, deep grey, almost blue in moonlight. The edge is embroidered with bone-white thread, finer than anything you've worn before. The spiral at the hem now loops twice, once inward, once outward. You know what it means. You've been through, and now you're coming back. That morning you were given a knife, not for violence, for carving, your first lesson in script. You're led to the scroll room again, where you sit beside a senior scribe. She hands you a flat board, a stick of charcoal, and says, "Write what you remember." You ask, "From the rituals?" She smiles. "From before." And just like that, the memories come. Not dramatic ones. Little things. Your mother humming to herself while grinding barley. The look on your father's face when he realised you'd lied about the broken jug. The way rain smelled on market stone. The time you thought the moon followed you for a whole night and cried because you felt chosen. You write it all. Not with polish, not with perfection, just with presence. Later, your scroll is taken, not judged, but read and stored. Not as doctrine, but as data. For the soul. The temple doesn't just preserve ritual, it preserves you. At dusk, you're asked to tend the fire again. This time, no midwives supervise. The flame recognizes you now. It flares slightly when you enter. You bow, not to the fire, but to the part of yourself that burned and lived. You feed it resin and fig wood, whispering nothing, feeling everything. A breeze enters the chamber from nowhere, and the flame curls into a spiral just once before settling. Later, you find yourself standing in front of the statue again. She hasn't changed, but you have. You bow deeply, forehead touching the stone floor. When you rise, her eyes seem less foreign, more like yours. You step back into the open night, stars above, dust below, the temple humming in quiet rhythm, and within you, a spiral still turning, not finished, just evolving. You wake before the bells, not because someone calls you, not because it's required, but because your body wants to. You move quietly, like the temple does, with intention instead of instruction. The dawn is slow, veiled in low clouds, and the ground outside your quarters is still damp from a midnight mist. You wrap your shawl tight, step outside barefoot, and press your soles into the earth just to feel something unmediated, something real. The fig tree by the northern wall has dropped a cluster of ripe fruit. You pick one, split it open with your thumb. The smell hits first. Sweet, slightly fermented, familiar. You eat in silence, staring at the horizon where the sun is struggling to rise. Somewhere to your left, another initiate stirs. You hear the soft clatter of a water jug. The day is beginning, but this time it doesn't feel like a cycle. It feels like a spiral turning inward. You're not doing the same things again. You're meeting them deeper. Later that morning, the head priestess summons you, not with grandeur, just with presence. You walk with her through the shaded colonnade where vines curl up the pillars like script. Neither of you speaks for a long time. That's one of the things you've learned here. Silence isn't absence, it's space. And sometimes space is the only thing big enough to carry what must be carried. She stops in front of a sealed chamber. The door is simple. No carvings, no symbols, just dark ancient wood fitted into stone. "The temple remembers," she says. You nod. It's not a question. She opens the door and you step inside. This room isn't like the others. No fire, no incense, no echoes, just shelves. Shelves lined with clay figures, hundreds, maybe more. Each one no taller than your hand, shaped by fingers long gone. Some have human features, others look like animals. Some are combinations, serpent-bodied women with bird skulls, men with goat horns and eyes made of dried berries. These are the echoes, she tells you. Everyone who completes the purification leaves one. Gee, you blink. I haven't made mine. She smiles faintly. Not yet. You walk through the narrow aisles of effigies, careful not to breathe too hard. The weight in this room is not physical, it's spiritual, like walking through 1,000 whispered memories, each one preserved in silence. She hands you a lump of wet clay. When you shape it, she says, don't think about what you want it to look like, let it become. You nod. You sit at the low stone table. The clay is cool, pliable, slightly gritty. You press your thumbs into it, and something shifts. Not the clay. You. Your fingers begin to move in rhythms you didn't know you remembered. A shape forms, a spiral at the base, of course. Then a torso, narrow shoulders, a face, but not a face, just an eye. One, large, watching. Above it, a curved line, like a second eyelid or a crescent moon. It's not pretty, but it's true. When you're done, you place it on the drying shelf. It joins hundreds of others. You don't ask what they're for. You already know. They're not gods. They're selves. Past selves. Future selves. Selves you won't meet until this life peels open. You exit the chamber lighter. You've left something behind. And somehow, that makes space for what's coming next. That afternoon, you're called to the watchtower. Not for surveillance. This isn't that kind of place. No, it's for vision. At the top of the tower, the horizon unfolds in every direction. Hills, valleys, dark threads of rivers twisting toward the unseen sea. You haven't been this high in weeks. You forgot what distance looked like. A priestess hands you a bowl of dark liquid. Not wine, dreamroot tea. You raise it slowly. Feel the warmth in your fingers. Sip. The world does not blur. It focuses. Suddenly everything is sharper. The colour of dust on the stones, the flutter of your robe in the wind, the crows circling far above the acacia grove. You close your eyes, and the visions arrive like smoke in reverse, forming shape instead of dissolving. You see a younger version of yourself standing in the village square watching someone leave. Then you see that same self, older, returning with a satchel full of bones and stories no one wants to hear. Then you see yourself now, but not here, somewhere else, in another temple. Or is it a cave? You're speaking, teaching. Your hands are marked. Then a final image. You, alone, standing at a river's edge. You're holding something. A bowl, maybe, or a flame. The river is rising, and you walk into it. When you open your eyes, the priestess is gone. So is the bowl. Only the wind remains, cool against your cheeks, whispering something that might be a farewell, or a beginning. You descend the tower without speaking. You are met by no one, no congratulations, no explanation, just the temple, quiet and present. That night, the stars return, bolder than before. You lie awake, watching them blink through the open roof, and for the first time since arriving, you sleep without dreams, because the dream is already awake, in you. When morning arrives, it doesn't knock. It slips through the silence like a slow-moving flame and settles in your chest. You wake without effort, without stiffness, without dread. Something in your limbs has shifted, like you finally stopped resisting gravity. Like your body belongs here now, not just your presence. You wrap your shawl around your shoulders and step into the early courtyard. The dust is still undisturbed. That's how you know you're first. You kneel in the center, fingertips brushing the spiral traced in ochre. The lines feel familiar now, not just as symbols, but as pathways, memory maps. The head priestess finds you there. She does not speak. She simply sits beside you. Together, you watch the sunrise creep over the eastern wall. It hits the oldest corner of the temple first, the place said to contain one of the original foundation stones. Some believe it hums during eclipses. Others say it's haunted. You've never heard it hum, but today, for a moment, it gleams with a light too golden to feel ordinary. She turns to you. It's time. You nod. You're not sure what you've agreed to, but you trust it. She leads you, not into a chamber, not to a fire, but out, past the fig tree, past the tomb garden, toward the southern path where the forest brushes against the edge of the world. But you don't enter the forest this time, not again. Instead, you stop at a narrow rock ledge overlooking the valley. Below, the landscape stretches wide and wild, 1,000 shades of green and red, villages in the distance, smoke from cooking fires, a goat herd dotting the hillside like moving stones. The priestess kneels. She begins to gather mud. You follow. The rite is simple, but not small. Together you kneel in silence and shape a small mound of earth. At the top you carve your spiral. She adds a second mark, a crescent. This is where your past ends, she says, and where your name changes. You glance at her. My name? She smiles. No one leaves here the same. You stare at the mound. The wind picks up, shifting your robe around your ankles. You close your eyes, reach inward, not for a title, not for an identity, but for a sound, something shaped like you, something only you can hear. It rises, softly. You speak it aloud, one word, one syllable, a name not given to you but drawn from you. She nods. You'll speak it only once, she says, to yourself. Then you'll carry it in silence. You touch the mound, whisper it again. The earth seems to absorb the sound. Then she stands. You follow. There is no return ceremony, no march back into the temple. You simply re-enter, quietly, with new weight. A name beneath your tongue, a silence inside your chest. Inside the hall, initiates move about their duties. One sees you and pauses, bowing slightly, not in submission, in recognition. You're not above them, but you're through. That evening, you're taken to the weaving chamber. The oldest woman in the temple sits there, fingers bent like tree roots, eyes clouded with age and something sharper. She gestures to the loom beside her. You sit. She hands you a shuttle and a thread dyed blue-grey. It matches the robe you now wear. You begin to weave. She watches. You fumble. The tension is off. She doesn't correct you. She simply reaches over and touches your wrist. And suddenly, you feel it. The pattern. Not just the one you're making, the one beneath it. The hidden structure. Weaving, she says, is not craft. It's memory. The fabric you make today will be worn by an initiate who has yet to arrive. She will not know you made it, but she will feel it. The tension, the intention, the spiral folded in between the threads. You weave long after nightfall. When you finally rise, your legs are numb, your fingers are sick, but your cloth is complete. The old woman takes it, presses her forehead to it, then sets it aside without a word. You sleep deeply that night, not dreamless, but slow. Your dream is a single image, the temple, viewed from far above, its spirals glowing faintly in the dust, and in the center, your effigy, not sitting still, but walking, moving, becoming. You wake before dawn again, but this time the temple doesn't feel like the center of everything. It feels like a home you may one day leave, because becoming whole isn't the final destination. It's the invitation to return, not to the temple, to the world. You've been dreaming of departure without knowing it. Not the kind of leaving that happens with bags and goodbyes, but the deeper kind. The kind that begins inside the breath before you realize what's changing. The temple hasn't told you to go. No one has pointed to the gates, but everything around you is whispering, soon. Your movement's slow, not out of reluctance, but reverence. You begin to notice the texture of transitions, how the sun shifts across the courtyard stones, how the wind speaks differently through each corridor. You start walking the long way between duties, not because you're lost, but because you want to memorize the sound of your footsteps on the clay tiles. One afternoon, a priestess hands you a roll of fresh linen and says only, "Wrap it well." It's not a robe, it's a satchel. Inside you'll pack symbols, not tools, not maps, just small pieces of memory. No one tells you which ones to choose. That's your task. You begin with the obsidian shard. Yes, the same one you held after the Chamber of Mirrors. You never returned it. You press it to your lips before placing it inside the satchel. Next, a dried fig from the grove. Wrinkled, sweet, still smelling faintly of fire. Then, a piece of your first robe. You cut a strip from the hem. The fabric resists slightly as if it knows what you're doing, but it tears clean. You don't bring anything that came from outside the temple, not because it's unworthy, because it's unnecessary. That self won't be returning. The last item is unspoken. The spiral, not on cloth, not in your hand. You carry it in your skin now. That evening, you're asked to join the prayer circle. You haven't been invited since your earliest days, when your voice was fragile and your posture still screamed outsider. Now, as you step into the spiral of seated bodies, The circle simply opens, as if it was always shaped for your return. The chanting begins, low, breath-heavy, not sung exactly, exhaled. Your voice joins theirs. You don't have to think. The melody finds you. The syllables are unfamiliar, but you've said them in dreams. Your voice doesn't lead, but it anchors. One of the younger initiates beside you starts to weep, silently. Her shoulders tremble, but she doesn't leave. You don't reach out. You simply keep singing, and she stays. That's when you understand your role. You're not here to lead. You're here to hold, to be the silence between the chants, the ember beneath the flame. When the circle ends, the head priestess touches your shoulder. She doesn't speak, but you hear it anyway. It's time. At dawn, you walk the temple one final time, not in ritual, just as witness. You visit the fire chamber. The flame bows to you, figuratively but also literally. For the first time, it flickers in the shape of a spiral and then returns to center. You don't feed it, you just watch. You pass the tomb garden. Place your fingers on one of the older stones. You whisper, "Thank you," not knowing to whom, but meaning it completely. Then, the spring. You kneel and cup the water to your lips. It tastes the same, but now it feels different, like it's drinking you too. At the gates, the linen satchel hangs at your side. You wait. The High Priestess appears. She hands you nothing, just looks at you. Then she says the only words that matter. You may go. No escort, no guard, no ritual procession, just you, your feet, and the world. You step beyond the gates for the first time in what feels like lifetimes. The air hits you differently, lighter, wider, real. You walk slowly at first, listening to every sound. Birds, wind, your heartbeat. The crunch of gravel beneath your steps. You pass the outer shrine, once terrifying, now familiar. You pass the last curve of the trail, and the temple disappears behind a ridge. Gone, but not gone. It's in your breath, your stride, the way your eyes now find spirals in tree bark and river bends. You're not returning to your old life. You're carrying something new into it. You are the ritual now. You are the flame. And when someone asks where you went, you'll pause, you'll smile, and say only, "I remembered." You don't speak to anyone on the first day, not because you can't, but because the words feel heavy, too sharp, too narrow for what you now carry. You move like someone between two worlds, because you are. The village you left is the same, the people are the same, but the space between you and them is vast now, made not of distance, but of transformation. You enter the market wrapped in your plain outer robe. The indigo one stays folded in your satchel, hidden. Not because it's a secret, because it's sacred. The robe is not for display, it's for remembering. A fruit seller you once knew calls your name, not your new one, your old one. You smile politely, nod, let it pass. You pick up a fig from her basket and press it gently between your fingers. Not ripe. You set it down. She doesn't notice. She's already turned to another customer. You feel a sudden pang, not of rejection, but of reality. You're no longer made for small exchanges. Or rather, you are. But they feel different now. Everything does. You stay in the village only 2 days, long enough to greet those who matter, short enough to remain intact. On the morning of the 3rd day, you leave without announcement. There are no belongings to gather, no loose ends. You walk east, into what? You don't know. That's the point. You follow paths that don't appear on maps. You sleep under trees, drink from brooks, let the wind guide your hunger. You meet a widow who tends bees and speaks only in riddles. You help her lift a fallen hive and she gives you honey without asking who you are. You sit one evening beside a man weeping by a broken wall. He says nothing, neither do you. When he rises, he leaves a smooth stone on your knee. You carry it. The days blend. But you don't drift, because the spiral inside you still turns. You reach another town weeks later. There's a shrine there, smaller than the temple but still breathing. A cracked statue, a circle of stones. A girl sweeping the steps, her hands too small for the broom. She sees you, stops, watches. You nod. She nods back. Something silent passes between you. Not recognition, not yet, but alignment. You stay the night in the village shelter. An old woman tends the hearth. She smells of salt and thyme and something else. Smoke, maybe. She asks if you've come from the mountain. You pause, then say, "I've come through it." She nods once. That's enough. That night you dream. The temple again, but abandoned, dusty, empty. You walk through it, touching walls, relighting fires. When you reach the sanctum, the statue is gone. In its place, you, kneeling, silent, alive. You wake with tears in your eyes, not sadness, recognition. In the days that follow, people begin to ask for stories, not tales, memory. You speak slowly, carefully, offering not knowledge, but presence. You tell them about the fig tree, the snake, the fire that saw you. You don't call it wisdom, you call it what it is, remembering. Some listen, some scoff, some weep. One girl follows you for 3 days without speaking. On the 4th, she says she's had the dream too. You give her your last fig. She eats it without thanks. You smile. She's ready. You write nothing down. You leave no shrine. You travel by firelight, river song, and the spiral beneath your ribs. When people ask what you are, you say nothing. You offer your silence like a mirror, and most cannot look. But the ones who do, they remember something old, something alive. And in that remembering, the spiral turns again. Not forward, not back, just deeper. The first time someone calls you priestess, it doesn't feel like a title, it feels like a question. You're sitting beneath an acacia tree, your hands stained with the juice of wild berries you've gathered for dye. A young mother from the village is nearby, trying to soothe a child with a fever. She looks at you. Not with awe, not even with hope, but with exhaustion. "You're a priestess, aren't you?" she asks, as if needing it to be true more than needing an answer. You pause, not because you doubt, but because the word feels so small compared to what you've become. "I've walked where priestesses walk," you say. She nods. That's enough. You crush the berries gently, smear a line of dye onto a strip of bark and wrap it around the child's wrist. Not as medicine, as a mark, a reminder that someone sees him, that something ancient still watches. You leave the next morning, as always, without explanation, but the child's mother leaves a small jar of sesame oil at the place where you slept. That's how you know you've been understood. In another town, a man brings you a question he cannot ask. He fidgets, sweats, can't meet your eyes. Finally, he just places a carved figurine at your feet. A goddess, worn smooth at the nose and chest. He doesn't speak. He doesn't need to. You take the statue, press your fingers into its grooves, then hand it back, unaltered. "Bury it," you say. "Where?" "Where you first lied to yourself." He doesn't cry, but he bows before he leaves. In a fishing village by the cliffs, a girl finds you drawing spirals into the sand. She sits beside you. "Are you drawing time?" she asks. You shrug. "Maybe." She hums. "I think it looks like the inside of a wave." You smile. That night, she dreams of fire, of a voice in the wind that calls her by a name she hasn't yet earned. In the morning, she finds you gone, but the spiral remains, etched into her mind more deeply than the shore. You begin to understand that your path is not made of stone or ritual anymore, it's made of echoes. People don't remember what you say, they remember what they saw in themselves when they were near you. And still, the silence you carry speaks louder than any chant. One day, a temple runner finds you on the road. She's young, barely more than a child, breathless from the long journey. "There's a girl," she says. "She's returned too soon. She ran from the fire, but she came back." You say nothing, but you rise. You walk with her to the temple, a different one this time. A sister temple, one you've never entered. Its walls are lower, its trees older, but the pulse, it's the same. Inside, the girl is curled on the ground, fists clenched, eyes red. She looks up when you enter. "Don't ask me anything," she says. You sit beside her. "I'm not clean," she whispers. You shake your head. "That's never been the point." She leans against your shoulder, says nothing more, but something in her settles. You don't lead her to the altar. You lead her to the fig tree. You share the first fruit of the season, and when she's ready, she walks into the fire chamber on her own. You leave the next morning. The temple keeper offers you a staff, a robe, a title. You accept only a single copper spiral tied on a leather cord. You wear it around your wrist, not as proof, as promise. That night you sleep under the stars, pressed between two boulders that look like kneeling figures. You dream of your own face, but older, eyes brighter, skin wrinkled from decades of wind and knowing. In the dream you're sitting in a circle of young women. You say nothing. They lean in anyway, and you know the spiral is still turning. Even when you're gone, it will turn, in their voices, their steps, their breath. You're no longer the flame, you're its smoke, everywhere, invisible, necessary. The seasons pass without fanfare. No ceremony marks the end of one and the beginning of another, just the gradual shift of wind and birdsong, and the kind of stillness that settles into the bones of trees. You feel these changes differently now, not like an outsider observing time, but like a participant in the pulse beneath it. You don't count days anymore. You measure time by memory, by encounters, by moments that feel like rituals even when they aren't. You stay longer in some places now, a week, a month, once, an entire winter. In a hillside village with thick fog and thin soup, you spend evenings teaching a handful of children how to weave with dry grass and clay-dyed twine. You don't speak of the temple, you just show them how to listen with their hands. One girl asks if you're a witch. You smile. Only on Wednesdays, she grins, and braids her grass tighter. One night, an elder woman pulls you aside. She's small, hunched, her voice like bark rubbed smooth. "My daughter walked into the forest and didn't come back," she says. "How long ago?" you ask. 30 years? You nod. She isn't asking for answers, just acknowledgement. "She's still walking," you whisper. The old woman places a stone in your palm, smooth, black, cold as bone. She would have liked you. You carry that stone with you now. Some days you feel it grow warm. In another village you meet a healer who has never seen the inside of a temple, but knows how to make a fever retreat with one word and a thumb pressed between two ribs. You learn more from her in 2 days than you did in weeks of chants. Not because she teaches, because she remembers in motion. "I don't pray," she says. "I stir." You laugh. You begin to stir more often. One night, while sleeping beneath the wide branches of a sleeping acacia, you wake to the sound of footsteps, a group of travellers. Their leader is a young man with a furrowed brow and a mouth full of questions. He sits beside you uninvited, not disrespectfully, just urgently. "I've lost something," he says. You wait. He doesn't elaborate, but you understand, so you take a stick and you draw a spiral in the dirt between you. Then you erase it. "Now go find it," you say. He blinks, confused, annoyed. But 2 days later, you see him again, smiling. He never says what he found. You never ask. As you move from place to place, people begin to expect you. Not because you've announced yourself, because stories move faster than feet. They don't call you by your name, your old one, or your temple name. They call you she who walks with silence, the spiral touched. Sometimes simply her. You don't correct them. Their words aren't definitions, they're doorways. You enter a town one evening just as the rain begins. A young man pulls you under the awning of his family's house without hesitation. His mother hands you soup. His sister brings dry cloth. None of them ask who you are, but they leave space at the table like they've always known. You sit, you eat, you leave before dawn, but in the middle of the town square you trace a spiral in the mud with your heel. A child finds it later, draws another beside it, then another. The whole square blooms with spirals by sunset. When you look up at the night sky that evening, you realize something quietly extraordinary. You no longer feel like you left the temple. You feel like you are the temple, its breath, its rhythm, its unwritten scripture. The rituals no longer need incense or drums or sanctums. They happen in fields, by rivers, in whispered laughter and long silences and unexpected tears. You do not initiate anyone. You do not bless. You simply remain. And in remaining, you allow others to remember that the spiral never ends, that the purification never truly finishes, that the goddess doesn't only blink within the sanctum. She winks through every cracked mirror, every silent forest, every bowl of soup handed to a stranger. You do not need to be seen anymore, because you are felt. You know it's time when the walking no longer feels like movement, when the outer journey begins to echo the one inside, step for spiral, breath for breath. One morning, you wake in a field of lavender and wild onion, and the wind says turn back, not as command, as invitation. The temple you left has been quiet all this time, but something within it has stirred. Or maybe something within you has. You don't rush. You don't mark the days. You simply let the land unfold beneath your feet, trusting that where you are going will rise to meet you when you are ready to arrive. The path to the temple looks different now. The trees have grown. The dust has shifted. The whisper tree has shed a few more branches, but its roots are deeper. When you place your hand on its bark, it hums, not in greeting, but in recognition. You walk through the gates without announcement. The courtyard is nearly empty, save for a few initiates sweeping the dust into familiar spiral patterns. One of them sees you. Her broom stills. She doesn't bow. She just stares, as if she's seeing something from a dream she's only half remembered. Then the head priestess steps forward. Older now, slower, but the fire in her eyes is undiminished. "You returned," she says. You nod. "I never really left." She smiles, and this time it reaches her eyes. You're led, not to a chamber, not to a fire, but to the temple's heart. The oldest room, the one you were never allowed to enter before, a place spoken of only in metaphor, a space for those who've walked the full spiral and returned to its centre, not to stay, but to bless others through their leaving. Inside, it is dark, not empty. The floor is covered in symbols drawn in powdered stone, spirals within spirals like a map with no end. She gives you a bowl. You recognize it. It's shaped like the one you once whispered into, the one you shattered. This one is whole. "This is yours to keep," she says. You bow, not because she commands it, because your body remembers what it means to kneel before what is sacred. You spend the next week in silence, but not isolation. Each day, a different initiate visits you. Some cry, some laugh, some say nothing. You listen. Not with your ears, with your presence. They ask you nothing, but they leave knowing something they didn't know before. Then the night comes, the final rite, not for you, for them. The next generation stands in the courtyard, ready to begin their purification. You are asked to speak. You say only this: everything you fear will be your teacher. Everything you lose will be your return. You're not here to become clean. You're here to become true. And then you fall silent. The head priestess steps forward. She removes the spiral cord from her wrist, the one she's worn since before your arrival. She ties it to yours. "You are the temple now," she says, "and you understand. Not that you are in charge, that you are the keeper of remembering, the guardian of what can't be written, the voice that speaks only when silence has prepared the soul to hear." You walk the spiral one last time in full circle, and feel not departure, not arrival, but stillness, the kind that holds everything. When the final light fades and the new initiates begin their path, you step aside, not because you're done, but because your breath now lives in them. You sit beneath the fig tree once more, close your eyes, and listen, not for words, not for signs, just for the quiet sound of the spiral turning, again and again and again. And now the fire softens, the smoke curls upward, slow and sure, tracing invisible circles in the dark. Your breath lengthens, your shoulders release. The night no longer feels heavy, it simply is, still, watching, familiar. The story has ended, but not really. You're still there, aren't you? Kneeling beneath the fig tree, forehead pressed to the earth, spiral carved gently into the dust. You're not the same person who began this journey. You've been shaped, unmade, softened, not by force, but by rhythm, by returning, by remembering who you were before the world asked you to be anything else. The temple still stands, but now it stands in you, in your silence, in your breath, in the way you notice things others don't. The tilt of the wind, the weight of a glance, the sound of your own truth rising quietly inside your chest. Let the spiral continue turning, long after this story fades. Let it turn in your dreams, in your waking, in the soft moment just before sleep takes you. You are not alone, the temple breathes with you, the fire keeps burning, and somewhere under a sky like this one, another initiate walks barefoot through sacred dust, whispering her name into the dark. She doesn't know it yet, but you're already waiting for her, already watching, already there. Sleep well. You've come through. 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 You've come through.